David, welcome to Desiree.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
It's a great to have you join us.
Thank you.
It's so kind of you to join us.
Thank you.
So let's start with the basics.
All right.
Let's start with understanding autism, because
All right.
whether we like it or not, the only way we can support is to understand.
Yes.
And for many of us, we don't have an idea of what it is beyond the topic. Because some people hear autism and shut down. And you hear people say, thank God that's not me, or thank God it's not my child, or thank God it's not my husband, or thank God. We just intrinsically exempt ourselves from autism.
Yeah.
But as much as we shut down after hearing autism, it doesn't negate the fact that we need to open our minds to understand what it is. It's not a death sentence, that much I know. But can you give us a simple explanation of what autism is and what it means to be on the autism spectrum? Because that's very grandiose.
Yes.
So if we can start with that, and then you can throw in what can be referred to as a autism disorder.
Okay.
Spectrum disorder.
Thank you very much. When we refer to autism, or which is for short called ASD, Autism Spectrum Disorder, right? So we refer to a neurodevelopmental disorder. When we say neurodevelopmental, it means that first of all, your mind goes to the brain.
Yes.
So it means it begins with the brain, right? So, and it impacts how a child communicates, interacts with the environment. And when we talk about interaction with the environment, it has to do with how the child also play with other children.
Yeah.
It also affects their emotional regulation, their sensory regulation too. When I say sensory regulation, it has to do with, for example, in the studio, you know, we have the intensity of light. All right, somebody who is autistic might come here and might be having a meltdown. All right, or start throwing a tantrum. All right, and also they also react to sound. So all of these things, it also affects their mental health too. So when we talk about autism being a spectrum too, it also means that it affects children or present in children differently, right? So, and it could be mild, it could be moderate, it could be also severe. And to be on the spectrum, or to describe the spectrum, it also means that autism would be different in each children when they are diagnosed. So it presents differently. I need to also add that it also comes, what we usually call the follow-come of autism, the comorbidities, right? So there are other diagnoses that can actually stand alone. But for example, you can be diagnosed to be with autism and still be dyslexic. You can be diagnosed with autism and still it can come with ADHD, which we call attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and every other comorbidities.
Exactly.
Wow, comorbidity.
Because I wanted to say there's ASD, then there's ADHD, there's
yes.
so
we have speech delay.
So that means we're saying we can have things like dyslexia, ADHD without being autistic. But we cannot be one cannot be autistic without having them. Is that what we're saying?
Can you take that again?
So it's just like you said something about follow-come. So is it that one can be dyslexic, have ADHD,
and not be autistic?
Very well. You can't be autistic without having one of these. Is that what we're saying?
Yes, you are correct.
Okay, so it's like a joint
that's what it means to be on the spectrum. And the way each child would experience autism, right? It is also different. What I mean by that is that a child can actually experience autism at a mild level. It could be moderate, that's like the medium, and it could be actually severe. You know, formerly, when we talk about the mild autism, it used to be Asperger's syndrome, where you talk about, you know, children who have a high IQ level, right? And you see them very, very very good in certain areas.
Analytics.
Thank you. Mathematics, creative arts, and all of that. You know, so their brain is more of a specialized brain. And that is why the term special needs is adopted to describe children on the spectrum. You see that now? So it's a specialized brain. So autism is not necessarily a disability.
Yeah.
It is a different kind of ability.
Wow, like super kids.
Yeah. Exactly.
But
they have their own strengths, which you don't find in other typical children.
I've seen videos of them playing about with Lego. And you're like, oh my God.
That's why I understand the spectrum thing, because different presentation. And that's why I have to bring this down to Nigeria. How prevalent is autism in Nigeria? Or can we even say we have accurate data?
Yeah.
Because we know the peculiarity of Nigeria. Or would we say we are underdiagnosed here? Because I cannot lie to you. Maybe because now I have a lot of education and reading and watching and seeing things, that I will see some of the children, like I notice someone walking on tippy toes.
Okay.
One of my people's children.
Yeah.
And I will look and say, I hope this child is not on the spectrum. You know, they are feeling like a doctor. So can you tell us, are we diagnosed here? And do we have accurate data? Or how does autism present itself in Nigeria?
Okay, I would not use many words to describe, you know, what it is with data in Nigeria. We don't have data.
Well,
Yes, we don't. We have been trying to do a lot with, for example, in Lagos, with LASODA, the Lagos State Agency for People Living with Disability. All right. There's a lot going on with trying to see if we can get all the people living with disability, children living on the spectrum, to be registered and to be certified, right? So that we can actually assess them and also meet their needs. But if you go to underserved area, you would understand that there is no data. At the moment, you cannot really say that in Lagos State or in a particular local government, these are the number of people that are living with disability or living with autism, right? So, however, you can only talk about data when you go to homes where parents who are probably overwhelmed with taking care of their children or do not even know more, or you know, they are pushed by the superstitious belief around their child's disorder and push them to the homes where, you know, they put less privileged children. All right, those are the places where you can say you have data, right? Because they will have to record. Like in our center, we have record of everyone that we actually offer intervention to, or that we have assessed before. So we don't have data, and we need to do much in that regard.
But are doctors equipped to diagnose well enough?
Okay, because hold on to that thought, because I want to go on a short break, and I also want to find out how early we can detect this, but all of this will be answered, so just ponder on that.
All right.
We go on a short break, and when we come back, Jasiri continues with this important discourse. Stay with us. Many thanks for staying with us. We're still talking about a very important conversation, autism, or also known as ASD, especially in Nigeria, the detection and how society can handle it. And before we went on break, Lolo was trying to ask a question. Can you remind us your question?
I wanted to ask that, are doctors in Nigeria equipped to diagnose? Because this is like a behavioral diagnosis.
Yes.
Okay, so I would not say that they cannot tell. They can. But when we talk about accurate diagnosis, it's actually the duty of specialists, right? Doctor definitely will have understanding of what it should be, right? They have that general training, right? And but the major people who would be able to do that are the pediatricians. Now, some time ago, I was in one of the general hospitals in Lagos State, right? So I was there with my wife for the immunization of my child, right? So, and I was looking at some of the women there who brought the children. You know, it's my thing, is what I do. So I'm able to observe quickly. And, you know, from merely looking at the child, I knew some things were going on. I put spots 2 to 3 women holding children that I felt like, no, this child shouldn't be like this. And I spoke with the nurses, and I asked them, what is going on? don't you talk to these parents about their child and all of that? They felt like, please, the work is too much for them. They cannot be doing this. And it's true. Many of our hospitals are understaffed, and they don't have the required skill, not only skill,
training.
but the training, the equipment, all right, the resources to do the diagnosis, right? So they just kind of give them the advice they want to give to them, and they just make them leave the place. So they were even trying to tell me if I could come to, help,
to offer,
talk to, the parents, right? And, of course, if you want to do that with a, what's it called, a government hospital, the process you have to go through.
Bureaucracy.
In the case where you don't have the government system and policy that allows collaboration and partnership freely like that, so it's very difficult. So I would say that a lot of people haven't given birth to, and is this serious? Because every child, apart from those people who are probably not well-to-do enough to take their, when they are pregnant and they want to give birth, to take, to go to the hospital for delivery. Many of our children are born in the hospital. And when we talk about neurodevelopmental disorder, it means it starts at birth, right? It starts at birth.
So there can be some contributing factors to that.
Yes, a lot of them.
Okay, so still talking about early diagnosis, I think I'm very curious to know, are there signs or symptoms that teachers or parents or even the nurses and doctors, I mean, you said you saw some children and you knew that they shouldn't be like that, but probably because it's your field and you know these things, but for an average parent, they just feel like, this my child is a special child. They say every child is the finest in the eyes of their parents. And, in this part of the world, we most often rely on superstition for pre-forecast. So the child would look like this just because somebody crossed your leg, not because you're noticing something. It's just because you already have an understanding that something happened that might now lead to. So how does a parent or a guardian spot some of these things early?
Okay, very good question. There's what you call developmental milestone. All right, so in our centers and different centers, just to create awareness, you have the chart for developmental milestone, right? For 6 months, there are things you expect a child to be able to do. The reflexes you are supposed to see, the kind of gestures the child should start making, the kind of eye movement and eye contact the child should be making, right? The mother is breastfeeding the child, but the child is not looking at the eyes of the mother. Something is wrong already. So at 1 year, you should expect the child to be able to do some things, like start crawling, and the child is not crawling, the child is not ready to, do some things that every other typical children will do. Right? So you already know that there is a problem. And when you become conversant, it is just easy. You look at every other child. Even though I'm not encouraging comparison, because like we have said, every child is unique in their own right.
So
and apart from that, children develop differently.
Exactly, I was going to ask that. How about
you cannot assume. You cannot assume. So having said that, I'm just talking about the easiest way to pick that something might be going wrong. So what you should do afterwards is to, employ the service of a specialist. The easiest way, because those people, they also know those people who actually do the assessment and the diagnosis. So you go back to the hospital, meet the pediatrician.
Lala, I think Nigerians will first go to the church.
So, and that's because that's when we start talking about the superstitious beliefs. Because maybe the child is demon possessed. Maybe a spirit is living in the child. Because they can't just come to, or even in some homes, right? A woman was telling me a story in Ghana recently, all right? Telling me a story of how that after it was, the child was up to 9 years before she started getting intervention for the child. Because the family kept saying to the woman, right, that she actually got the child from another man. Like it couldn't have been from the family. They don't understand that even if it is not genetic, because we have different causes. It could be genetic. It could, if it is genetic, you would have seen other people having the signs in the family, in the health history of the family, right? Then it could be environmental. Sometimes the woman at pregnancy might experience some, sickness, and that can affect the development of the child. And don't forget that when the fetus in the womb, the brain is just forming at the time. Even apart from the sickness itself, the treatment of the mother can actually affect. That is why you will see there is restriction to the kind of medication that the pregnant woman can actually use, because these things interact with the development of the brain of the child and can impact them permanently.
Wow. So, I mean, we hear a lot about these disorders. There's so many fancy names for. I was going to ask what causes it, but you've sort of touched on that. But we have all fancy names, David. We have dyslexia, we have autism, we have ADD,
ADHD. You're also correct.
And then there's OCD.
Obsessive compulsive disorder. Now,
ADHD.
let me clarify. ADD is attention deficit disorder.
Yes, that one.
ADHD is attention deficit disorder with hyperactivity.
Because
so it means you can have attention disorder and you are not hyperactive, you are not impulsive. People are hyperactive, they can take turn, so more like a child is in the classroom, for example, is having ADHD, is calm, and the teacher is wondering, this child is very calm. I don't know why it's not just coping in the classroom, all right? Because you do not understand that this guy can have attention deficit without hyperactivity.
But David, listen, these things, when we're talking, since we started having the conversation, I was trying to cast my mind back growing up. I didn't hear these things. Nowadays, people think it's a Western thing. I mean, is it imported, the Oyibos, because with them, everything
even Tourette's syndrome. Last year, that I discovered that.
Social media does a lot of education for me, because that's where I see so many children on the spectrum and different behavioral patterns.
So where were we before this? I mean, guys, I never heard.
Did we import them?
I have an answer for you.
What was life like? What did we have before these? Was there even something we had before all of this?
Okay, autism has always been present in every continent and every country, every community.
And is it the food we eat too?
No, not necessarily. It could be a factor, right? It could be a factor. But what wasn't there for us in Africa, most especially in Nigeria, was awareness. So our people have the name they give to these things already. So do you understand that? What you see now is not autism increasing, it's awareness. And increasing.
Imagine if you had a child that was
Autism has always been there.
A child that was hitting their head on the wall, would you say is a demonic or
flapping, steaming, flapping, and all of that. So when I see
going in circles, I've seen cracking.
Tiptoeing,
they almost
have repetitive behavior. They can just, stay in a place and just keep pushing the Legos and coming back, and they can be there for hours.
And unfortunately, they almost always end up with one grandmother in the village. Because growing up, I'm casting my mind back now, and I'm realizing that at some point I had some classmates that were not really like me, and then all of a sudden, he has gone to meet grandma in the village.
Now, let me tell you something about myself. All right, so I do tell people that I am a neurodivergent person. So when we talk about neurodiversity, we're just talking about the neurotypical brain, and we're having the neurodivergent brain. So when we talk about neurotypical, it means we have the population of people that think and their brain process the same way. Right? Normal, you come to this place, at most if the light is too much, the refraction in your eyes, it doesn't affect you so much, you just regulate yourself and all of that, But for a neurodivergent person, I'll say, okay, let me use myself as an example. Like I said, I do say I am a neurodivergent person. So while growing up, so I wouldn't know, wasn't just doing well, and my parents would get me all the textbooks, and at the end of the session, right, there will be prizes and all of that for students, and they are aware that my friends do get my textbooks to read, and they get the prizes, and I don't get any. So I managed to pass, in fact, all my results. Maybe I had 3 credits. Every other part of my result for, what is this GS3?
Why?
No,
Junior Y.
Junior Y.
Yeah.
It was all pass. And that's because there were extra lessons and all of that. So, so what I'm trying to say is that all of this period, all I get is, why are you like this? Why are you like that?
So dull.
My parents do not even know better, right? And I am not blaming them. They did their best, right? But I knew that something was going on,
Yeah.
right? I with the knowledge that I have now, I know I am not autistic, but I actually know what is going on with me now, like what was going on then. So I later find out that I actually learned differently. And that wasn't present in my education system.
Okay, you see this thing about learning differently. I have a question to
Yes.
that, but I want us to go on a break because it's quite interesting.
All
When
right.
we come back, we'll pick it up from there.
That's right.
Stay with us.
All right, so today on Jesse, we are shining a light on a topic that's too often misunderstood, autism. In Nigeria, awareness is growing, but stigma and misinformation still stand in the way of support, inclusion, and proper care. Still with us is David Oludaye. He's an applied psychologist and the executive director, Lifeline, and Milestone Inclusive Development Consult. Now, let's go back to learning differently, David.
All right.
You guys should have heard what was going on.
Wow,
during
so much
Honestly,
knowledge.
so I was trying to ask a question about people who, because I have encountered, and I really do agree that it's not the newness of the situation. It's awareness.
Awareness.
Because
Growing body
I have
awareness.
a friend who always says things like, there was a time he was trying to literally explain how he learns, and he says if his reading is a waste of time. So you see that image part of Google, he clicks on it, and he's like, the images literally jump out, and he's trying to understand it. And when he said, honestly, I felt, yeah, I've watched too much Marvin movies. But apparently there are people who learn like that.
Yeah.
So I think he calls it, is a pictorial, I don't even know what he says, but he says it's not, I don't know, but he's a pictorial learner. So can you speak to that?
Tactile learner.
Okay, so
Auditory. Yeah.
Yes.
So your friend is actually a visual learner.
Right.
Visual learner. So for somebody who is a visual learner, due to the differences in the way the brain actually learns or processes things, right? So such a person would actually need pictures,
Yeah. Visual aids.
visual aids in the class, right? So we have a lot of children in the class that the teacher is just, this is my curriculum. What do they call it? Curriculum, right?
Yeah.
This is what I have. They prepare their lesson notes.
Yeah.
And everybody in the class, they are just there. So at the end of the day, they grade everyone the same way. And so they say, this child is not learning. That child is slow.
Meanwhile,
This child is dull. And we have tactile learners. Tactile learners are people that know, because of the way their brain actually process things, information, and the information from the environment, they are tactile learners. Once you don't take them to touch the information you are trying to pass across to them, it doesn't stick.
Even if they're
And we
seeing it.
have auditory learners, right? So we have different kind of learning,
Abilities.
mediums, right? So these are the things that we actually assess in children. All right, and that is why our education sector and system needs to do much
Because, I was
about
going to
ensuring
say
that there is the presence of people who actually deal with these things in every school.
But so the problem is, I don't think many people would come to the realization of the fact that they are auditory learners or tactile learners. Like in school, I might just be wondering, I'm reading this thing, why is it not coming? It's later you now realize, okay, no, I think I don't think that it will be their fault if they don't detect it on time, because clearly
that's right.
that means in majority of our school systems are literally telling a fish to climb the tree. But you can't say that, this person is a tactile learner, because I don't know how to
There are no
explain it.
teaching aids. Look at Nigeria. We talk Montessori.
Yeah.
A lot of people think Montessori is just child's play. That is like a visual school. Where they use applied knowledge to teach children.
And practical
Shapes
things.
are practical. they teach them to do the zero. They teach them to make the T.
Exactly.
They are interacting with with what they're learning. Look at our school system. We don't even have exercise books.
No.
So how many children do you want to have auditory aids for or visual learning aids for? So what are we saying? And I just think that because we don't put, is it that the government we need better policies for children that have, unique abilities? Like I see a lot of these aids. They're not things that carpenters can do. But we just don't think it's important.
Thank you.
Do you think that the government as it is now, are they putting enough eyes on these issues for special needs children? Because I know Lasoda is actually headed by one of our friends, Adenike Oyetunde.
Yeah, exactly.
Sheriff.
Good woman.
Lawal. Sorry, I wanted to put her last name. Lawal.
Yeah.
And I know that they are doing a lot of things. Do you think we need more policy? Or what can we do better? Because this is no longer something that we can sweep under the carpet. It's right before our faces.
Yeah. Okay, so actually, you see, if people are actually doing well, you should commend them. Yeah. So I would say that Lasoda is really, really trying. But I also want to say that, you see, when it has to do with policy, we were talking about data the other time.
Yeah.
If a government of a state or the nation do not have the data of people living with disability or on the spectrum, of neurodevelopmental disorder, how can they even provide for them? So do you understand what I'm saying here? How can they even provide for them? So when it has to do with, what has been done, a lot is actually going on. We have different clusters of people living with disability in Lagos State, and they have various needs. Somebody living with Down syndrome, the needs is actually different from somebody living with cerebral palsy, somebody who is autistic, somebody who is dyslexic, somebody living with dyscalculia, or living with dysprasia, or motor dysfunction, and all of this, the diagnosis on the spectrum, right? So there are different needs. And because there are various needs, it is very, very important that we first of all identify who are they and what is their need. And talking about, recently, a parent was complaining about a child that, the woman thought the girl was deaf. But the young girl was actually living with auditory processing disorder. Now, auditory processing disorder is not deafness.
Okay.
It's just that when verbal information, sound comes in, they process it differently from a typical person. Don't forget that the background of everything is actually in the brain.
It is.
And when you look at every part of the brain, they actually are responsible for one thing or the other that we are able to do. It is the central nervous system. So this child, maybe there are three. You tell this person, go and do this, you to do this, you to do this. So the child is still there, and it looks like, so you didn't hear what I said. So every other person have done what they were asked to do. Maybe an hour later, this person just went to do, and the person is just coming back because you don't even understand what it is. You say, since morning that I told you, you say, you are just stubborn, you are just disobedient. But there is auditory processing disorder.
Wait, I'm sorry. So the person hears, what does the person hear at the time they're talking?
Okay, the person actually heard the information, but the person is actually processing the information. So when you talk about memory, for example, for people living with learning disorder, right, healthy. So when you talk about memory, you have long-term memory and you have short-term memory, right? So short-term memory is used for immediate awareness of information and a task that you are given to do, right? So, but the long-term memory is where after a while, the information moves to the long-term memory. So the short-term memory, if the person is having a dysfunction with that, right? You see that you tell the person, please, can you pick this and take it there, come back and do this. The person might go. Before coming back, the person has forgotten
Okay,
all the information.
David,
Wow, we have to have you back on this
sorry
chair.
to break it to you, but you're coming back.
Okay, there's no
we can't
problem.
finish
That's as much we can
It
take
will-
for today, but
honestly.
watch out for part 2 because this is a
right.
very important conversation and it's really interesting. I am learning a whole lot on this table. I'm sure you are too. So watch out. David is coming back definitely.
All right.
That's what we have on Jessie. Thanks for watching.
Same
Do us
time
again tomorrow, same time. From the ladies, bye.